Alright, so welcome back, everybody. So, I finally played Tidal Blades for my first time all the way through the game. I've attempted playing this game off and on for the past month or so, but I never got through the full game. There's a lot going on with this game, so it took me a long time to really contemplate the whole game. And I'm sure I'm still missing some things. Now, even though I will be explaining how to play the game, I'm sure I'm going to miss some things, so bear with me. Also, I'm also going to talk about how the game is set up and talk about various aspects of this game and the characters especially. I think each of the characters deserve their own video because they're all cool and unique, so I think they all kind of, need some explanations and how they work and all that as well. But this is a really fun game. It really is. And also, not only that, but it also has a lot going on with it as well. So it will take some time to definitely go through this. So it'll probably take several videos to explain how to play this game, for sure, because there's just a lot of content with this game. Now, first of all, let's talk about the storyline, sort of the game. Okay? In fact, in the rule book here, there is a little, story just to kind of get you excited for the game. Welcome, aspiring heroes. It has been 15 years since the great battle. 15 years since our esteemed engineers from the Citadel of Time made their wrenching decision and created the Fold. 15 years since the last assemblage and ultimate sacrifice of the Tidal Blades. Time and space were twisted into a powerful barrier to stop the onslaught of creatures from beyond the reefs. But today, the hard-earned peace is coming to an end. New monsters are ripping through the fabric of time, and the islands need protection once more. A tournament has been called. The arenas are ready, and contestants are now gathering from all over the realm. To convince the judges of your potential, you will need to train day and night, compete in challenges held in the 3 arenas, and rise to the top of the champion board. You have 4 days. Will you do what it takes to prevail and join those truly worthy of the title of Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef? So that's an interesting story. So basically, from what I understand, they created a barrier. The engineers at the Citadel of Time created a barrier called the Fold, which basically keeps out all the sea monsters from attacking the towns in the reefs and all that, right? Because there's a lot of islands, and obviously there's a lot of towns and things as well. But basically that's what has happened. The Fold is now starting to deteriorate, and monsters are now starting to break through. Now, when they were forming the Fold, they had Tidal Blades, several heroes, who fought against the monsters, held them back while they created the barrier. And all but one died. Okay? The one who survived is actually going to be a judge in this game. And so, in this game, the object of the game is you're going to want to complete challenges in the arena and do well at those challenges as well. A challenge might be an obstacle course or helping somebody out. You never know, but there's a ton of different challenges. And if you happen to be at the arena where this guy is, this Turtle Man here, he's one of the judges, and he's the judge you need to impress the most. And so by doing so, you will be increasing your pride, your prosperity, your honor, your all of that good stuff. You'll be increasing that and increasing that, and it will go towards the champion board. Okay, you'll be receiving trophies perhaps, and so you'll have a lot of prestige. Okay, and if you turn out to be one of the mightiest warriors, the mightiest, the strongest, the everything that is good that needs to be a hero, every skill you need in order to qualify as a hero. If you do well as that, then obviously you'll be able to become a Tidal Blade yourself and be able to protect the town, be able to protect the reef from the sea monsters, because there's just so many sea monsters. And so that's what's really interesting about this game is that depending on where he is, you can increase your prestige if you happen to be taking on a challenge nearby where he is currently located, because there's 3 different arenas in this game. Okay? Well, basically, that's the general idea, that you want to do that. Now, you can do that, of course, by also getting victory points, because this is a game that will have victory points. If you are the player who has the most victory points at the end of the game, you'll win. But it is different for solo mode. There's a solo mode for this game. You can play this game by yourself. Okay, but for solo mode, you don't actually try to obtain victory points. All you need to do is try to gain enough prestige to have basically the most, to be the highest up on basically the track for the champion board in the game. That's basically what you want to do. And so if somebody else is higher than you, one of the players you're against, if you're playing solo, then obviously you won't be named to Tidal Blades. Obviously not. But basically that's what you want to do, of course. Now, let's see here. Let's move on to showing you the characters. So, this is my favorite character here. His name is Cayman. He's a crocodile, so he's really cool. I love playing with him. It's awesome. And you'll notice right away that there are dials on this player board that you'll be moving quite a bit through the game, because when you take on a challenge, it's going to increase something. If you take on a challenge and you complete it, or even if you just maybe perhaps complete part of the challenge, aren't the champion of the challenge, but maybe you're able to learn something from the challenge. You might be able to increase some of these up. Your focus, your spirit, your resilience, and your synergy. Okay, your stats, for instance, okay? Now, each of these help you out with a variety of different things, okay? First of all, we have spirit here. Spirit, it allows you to basically perfect your stunt powers. So, there is a stack of cards, stunt cards, okay? And you can use them once per turn, so when you get a stunt card, you can use them. And if your spirit is 1, your stunt is only going to be so-so. But if you can get your spirit up to, I don't know, a 3 or a 2 even, that will obviously increase your stunt. It'll be a whole lot better, and you'll get a bigger benefit. So the higher the number, the better the benefit you get from a stunt power, okay? And there's a lot of different stunt powers. So that's what Spirit's going to work with, okay? Now, Focus is another one, and this one is really useful because when you are taking on a challenge, you have to roll dice. Not only that, but when you're fighting a monster and you're trying to injure it, well, you have to also have a strong focus to have a good chance of doing some damage to the monster, or doing well in challenges to boot. And the higher your focus means the more dice you can roll. So if your focus, which starts at 1 by the way, if your focus is only 1, that means you can only roll a die, just 1 dice, when you probably need 3, 4, 5 dice. Now in the game, you can only maximum have 6 dice. So you can't have more than 6 dice in the game. And believe it or not, it's really hard to keep it at 6, because when you use your dice to fight a monster, all of the dice you used fighting the monster are now gone. Because after all, it's dangerous fighting a monster. And so basically, you lose all your dice that you used to fight monsters. But if you don't fight the monsters, then some of those monsters can also attack the town later on, and if you weren't one of the ones who injured it, then you'll get injured yourself and you'll lose a dice. So that is something you don't want, obviously, to happen either. So you have to fight the monsters. You can't just simply ignore them, because they're going to deal a lot more damage to you, especially if other players are attacking the monsters. So of course, you're going to want to try to complete challenges that will help you to raise your focus, so that way you'll be able to roll more dice. Now, with that said, your focus can still be 1, and you can still roll than roll more than one dice. Now, how is that? Well, one of the items in the game are fruit. For every fruit you have, you can basically munch on the fruit, or pay a fruit, if you will, to add +1 to your roll, meaning you'll get to roll another dice. So for every fruit you utilize, you'll be able to roll more dice, obviously. But 6 would still be the max because you can never have more than 6 dice anyways. And since you'll be losing dice when you fight monsters, the numbers can drop pretty fast. You'll be definitely going to certain locations, because this is a worker placement game. So you'll definitely be going to locations where you can try to acquire more dice to roll, obviously. Especially since you're going to be losing dice as the game progresses. So that's something to note. Now, that's basically what focus is for. So the stronger the focus, the more focus you have, the more dice you can roll, okay? And the dice battle system is really cool, and we'll get to that in a separate video. But let's continue on with the next two. So here we have resilience. Now, whenever you use a dice, unless you're fighting a monster, because you lose dice when you fight monsters, right? You lose all your dice that you use to fight monsters. You'll notice here we have active dice and spent dice. That means that if you're taking on a challenge, you'll be using dice. And so, if you use the dice for the challenge, after the challenge is over, they go over here to spent dice. And this spot here, if they're on the spent dice, it means you can't use them for anything. You can't use them for challenges. You can't use them for fighting monsters. So that means you're going to need to find some way to get the dice that are on the spent dice over to the active dice. And there are ways you can do so. And the higher your resilience, the better for you in that regards. Because at the end of each round, based on how much resilience you have, will be how many dice you can refresh and upgrade. So for instance, if I had only 1 resilience, and I'm not going to grab a dice right now, but if you only had 1 resilience, and you had 3 spent dice here, you could only refresh 1 of them over to the active dice. And you'll also notice it says refresh and upgrade dice. So you could refresh that dice, and then you could upgrade that dice to the next level. There's several different levels of dice that you can use, and having a higher dice might mean you might be able to roll some of these symbols more often, a little bit easier. Some dice may be better than the novice dice, which is what you start with, but will only be able to roll maybe only these, or maybe only these, or some of them can only roll these, or just these, or just these, or just these, for instance. So the higher you go, you might be able to roll more than 1 symbol on the dice, but it will only be this symbol, or only this symbol, or this one, for instance. But basically, yes, you're going to still want to upgrade dice, because if you want to defeat a monster, you'll need stronger dice to defeat the monster, for sure. So you definitely want to upgrade your dice. You'll definitely also need to refresh your dice, which means you're going to need to find challenges. You're going to need to take on challenges that helps you raise your resilience. Of course, that may not be always easy. Maybe you just won't get a particular challenge that will raise one of these stats. I know when I played, I had this up really high. I had this pretty low, this pretty high, but these were really low. I had 1 focus throughout most of the game until like the 3rd round, I finally got it up the next notch. So it is possible that you won't find any obstacle courses or challenges that you can take on that will help you raise your stats. But that's something you'll definitely need to think about before taking on a challenge. You'll need to take on a challenge at one of the 3 arenas. Well, there's a lot to think about. More than just simply choosing which arena you're going to take a challenge at, but how many symbols are on the challenge card. Will you be able to have enough dice to take on the challenge? Or, which symbols are actually on those challenges? Maybe you have a lot of spirit, which I had a lot of spirit, but you keep getting challenges that have only this on it. That doesn't do me any good if all of these are still really low. So obviously this game is about balance. You need to find a good balance. You need to be able to compete at all of the arenas. You need to be able to obviously increase all of these stats, if at all possible, at least a little bit each. And of course, if you can, it would be nice to have something at a higher level, maybe spirit perhaps, who knows. But that's the point. That's basically how that is. Now we have one more here. We have synergy. So let's talk about that next. Synergy. So each character comes with a bunch of character cards. Okay? A ton of them. But in the beginning of the game, you can only use one character card, and it's usually going to be random. So you don't know what you're going to use. It's going to be a different game every time you play. Even if you play with Cayman every time, doesn't necessarily mean you'll get the same character card every time you play him. And each character card is different. And so in the beginning of the game, you only start with one character card, and the only way you can have more than one character card at a time is how high your synergy is. You need to raise your synergy here up and up and up in order to continuously get, obviously, more character cards. And I think the limit is 4. I think that is correct. Now, if somebody knows that's not the case, let me know. But I think the limit on how many character cards you can have and play at one time is 4. Okay? And there's more than 4, for sure. So, but basically, yes, you're going to want to increase synergy as well, so you have more character abilities that are special for Cayman or special for one of the other characters. Now, let's just briefly, real quickly, show some of all the other characters we have here. So here we have Axel. He's, from what I understand, half human, and he's one of the characters you can play as. And I've played with him, and he's pretty cool. We also have Dust. I haven't played with her. Not a huge fan of her playstyle, but she's one of the characters that you can play as. Then we have Echo, and he's pretty cool, right? He's an Azultal. Now, I haven't actually looked to see what gender he is, because I didn't really read all of the character cards thoroughly, so I'll have to read his story and see if he's male or female for sure. I'm not sure which, but yes, Echo is cool. And then the last one here, if you have the expansion for Tidal Blades, which is called, let me grab the box, it's called Angler's Cove. If you have the expansion, it comes with, obviously, a new character you can play as, which is this chameleon. He's a chameleon, and his name is Sagashi, okay, and he's a time-traveling chameleon. He actually came from the fold, just like the monsters have. He's the only friendly individual of friendly anything that has come from the fold. Everything else has been a monster that wants to destroy your town, wants to destroy the reef, right? But he has actually come and to help as well. And so you can play as him, and he's got this really cool isopod sidekick who is also telepathic as well. So he communicates with his partner, which is really cool too. So that's Sagashi. I haven't played with him yet, but maybe I'll play with him soon, because he looks really cool too. So those are all of the characters you can play as. So if you have the expansion, you can play a 5-player game as well. If you don't have the expansion, you can only play with 4 players. And of course, you can also just play solo too, which is also really cool. Now, this was mostly just kind of a brief overview. I did explain how each of these function, of course, and, what they are basically for, and of course how these work. But let's actually set the game up in the next video, kind of showing you how it gets set up. Alright, see you guys in the next video.